Hey everybody, if you can hear us, this is a little treat for me especially, and everyone else who's listening. Ahead of our launch at 5 p.m., Piers Thurston really kindly has agreed to come in because we couldn't speak later on. You can see where Piers is in the grandiose, beautiful place where he's running a retreat. And so we've literally got like 10 or so minutes with Piers to have a little introduction, really, to the superpowered mind and what we're talking about. Piers is running a retreat exactly on that topic. So, welcome, lovely, and thank you. Thanks so much.
Well,
And
it's a pleasure to be here, Claire. Pleasure to be here.
oh, so glad, lovely. Thank you. So, tell us, maybe give us an overview of your understanding and what are the main things that you help people see.
Yeah, so I suppose the end result of what happens when people start to look in this direction is they unleash that superpowered mind, and they start to see that the secret sauce to anything, whether that's better business, better relationships, better health, better financial well-being, peace, mental health, is all living in the same place. And it's all about our understanding of what we truly are in the wider sense of what that mind is. And
Mm.
once we recognize and realize that at an embodied level, rather than just kind of intellectually know it, it frees up this resourcefulness, this peace, performance potential. So in the sort of 20, 25 years I've been in personal professional development, I've done lots and lots of things to try and unlock that. You know, you could call it the indirect path, lots of tools and techniques and strategies, and examining my beliefs and my values and my goals and all that kind of stuff. But actually, it all comes back to something that is more upstream to that, which is an understanding of the very fabric of essentially what we are before we get into our psychological narratives. And once we understand that, all our psychology still has a utilitarian usefulness, but we have a very different relationship with it. We see it as part of what's unfolding, and therefore we're not so identified and attached with it. And that leads us to have a freedom, and that leads us to a lovely evolving, enlightening, freshening up of what is turning up. And we're not in our contraction so much. We just see this beautiful freedom. So at one level, that's an overall, but I could go into loads of depth of any of it. But I guess that's a minute on the overview.
So nice, Piers. So clearly said. And how do you find it working with business people when there's stuff that looks like so rigid and like targets and timelines and plans and goals, and how does this come across as a bit woo woo, or how do you?
Well, it's interesting because I'm just at the moment on morning one, day one of a 3-day program. So we're just getting into the woo woo, right? But actually, if you talk about it in a way that's not esoteric, that's really direct, there's a beautiful simplicity to it, which may be unconventional, but it's not woo woo or esoteric because we keep bringing it back to direct experience. What can you see right now about the system
Yeah,
without reference to your belief system and constructs? Now, if you go there, there's nothing woo woo about that. It might
yeah,
be a little different, but there's nothing woo about it. And it really doesn't take very long for someone to go, oh, there is something there that hasn't been explored yet in the way that we're exploring it. And you could actually take someone who's very kind of intellectually invested and quite logical and point them in this direction using their own direct experience as the reference. And that doesn't leave much margin for interpretation because you're just pointing them to have a look,
mm,
to explore this in a fresh way. And you find after a bit of a hump of, oh, that's different, what are we doing that for? They start to see the resonance. And as soon as you see resonance, you start to see relevance. And as
yes,
soon as you see relevance, then of course you're
yeah,
bound to be interested because you'll see what that means for psychological implications for behavior, mindset, attitude, actions, leadership, teamwork, creativity, resilience, all the things that we want. So yes, it's different, but if it's pointed to in the right way, you can decrease the woo-woo, decrease the esoteric, and it can be profound, yet still accessible and practical.
Love that. Yeah, I found that the logic of it is completely incontrovertible, and almost like from the moment there's even a thought about about thinking even or of where behavior comes from or where experience is originating, it like everything, like it takes us and we're on a journey then that has no end really until there's just pure presence, I would say,
Yeah.
pure intelligence operating.
And the most common piece of feedback we get is, oh, how come I didn't see this before? We question something like that, like this has always been there, right? So how come I'm 30, 40, 50 years old and coming across this? You know, there seems an obviousness to it. So I always say it goes from kind of invisible to subtle to obvious, and different degrees, of course, and it can change in the moment sometimes what's obvious and what isn't. But once we've got enough of the obviousness, we're like, this is a no-brainer, literally. How come I'm seeing this now rather than when I was at school or when I was growing up in my conditioning? So it becomes very much there's a momentum to it. It doesn't feel outer worldly. It may a little to start with, but actually business leaders see it as a secret sauce. Absolutely see it as a secret sauce to everything.
Yeah. Oh, darling, I don't want to keep you away from your retreat today. So maybe we leave it there, because that's just wonderful to hear you and speaking so.
Well, I wish you all the best with the launch today, Claire. And your podcast was already really great. So I can't imagine how great the second iteration is going to be. So look forward to following it. And just grateful I could offer something to contribute to your day. And I'm always open for anyone if they want to ask any questions about how this weird and wonderful stuff turns up in any aspect of life and work, particularly in business and leadership. So I'll open that invitation. Well, what I do is called Quality of Mind. So either go onto qualityofmind.biz, or I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, Piers Thurston, and I'm just started substacking as well, if that's a verb.
Nice.
And I have a podcast called Quality of Mind as well, which you've been on various times as well.
Yeah.
So anything like that, drop me a note. I'd love to hear from people, but I wish that you and the community all the best.
Oh, thank you so much, Piers. Have a great retreat. See you soon.
You're absolutely welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, lovely. Thank you. Oh, isn't that so great to hear from Piers? So that was our test. I've seen someone on Facebook, but it's not telling me who, say hi Claire, hi Piers. So looks like hopefully it's working. Our social media links. So great that we had Piers as our introduction, and we will see anyone else who wants to join in at 5 o'clock GMT. We'll go on until 8 p.m. We've got amazing guests and conversations from all different angles, really, from the point of view of healing and trauma, from the point of view of what's enough, talking to Melissa Ford about that, talking to Ameriga Giannoni, my amazing yoga teacher, about the body and yoga and Ayurveda and astrology and how does all of that fit with an understanding of the mind. Talking to Nick Bettini about mastery and creativity, talking to Helen Amory about why the mind is never a problem. And then Rohini Ross, who I last saw in my living room when we did a retreat on relationships, she'll be talking about the mind in relationships and how a greater understanding of that can really set free every interaction, every conversation. So yes, and Tia Ho is going to talk about our past and our background and how how this understanding is never a bypass of that, but really it's a way to fully integrate all our experiences. So it's really going to be a lovely launch party. I hope you'll join us, and we will see you later. Bye.